Hi everyone, happy June. I'm Sharon. I'm the Youth Services Consultant for the Vermont Department of Libraries, and I have a ton of books for you today. Actually, they're mostly picture books, but I also have a bunch of middle grade. I have some YA, and I have one nonfiction that I'm going to put at the end because it's a little bit older. So let's get started with some awesome picture books. The first one is called Ninja Bunny. And if you know me at all, you know that I had to review this book because it's hilarious. It's about a ninja bunny, and it's basically a how-to guide as to how to be a ninja bunny. And so if you look at this, there's a bunny, and how to be a super awesome ninja. What kid wouldn't love this? This will be great for a story time, and for your kids, There are, rules. Rule number 1, a super awesome ninja must always work alone. So there's all sorts of crazy stuff, and he runs into a snag towards the end because he's got to be able to battle anyone, anytime. There's a bear, and then what was the last one? He has to, a super awesome ninja has to have super friends. Look at this. It's really cute. I think there's one in here, too, about being invisible, which is, that was hard. Achieve invisibility. Here, I like this part. He must be able to achieve invisibility. So this could be a great read aloud, or it could be good for your kids who really like ninjas, or who like bunnies, or you just need a really active story for that active kid in your library. I really like this story. It's not great work for literature, but, it's good stuff. Another one that just tickled me is this one. It's called Duck's Vacation. And it's one of those hilarious books that kind of interacts with you. So in the beginning, Duck, how relaxing. He's on vacation. Yay. And then you turn the page and he's like, whoa, what happened? Who turned the page? And then what happens is that every time you turn a page, more things happen. So you turn a page and a crab shows up. You turn a page and a bird lands on his head. You turn a page and all of a sudden people are playing ping pong on his quiet little beach. You turn a page and all of a sudden there's a crowd. Every time you turn a page, something comes up to ruin his serene vacation. And then it starts to rain. It's terrible. Poor Duck. And it keeps going. He reminds me a lot of Duck for President, that Duck, the Cronin Duck. So I think of him that way. So anyway, so you keep going, and at one point he's like, yeah, you turned the page to a good page. Yay. But then you turn the page, and guess who shows up? Pirates! So this whole book is about Duck's vacation and how you ruin it by turning the pages. It, of course, ends fine. I think it's really cute. It could be a good summer read for summer story time, or just something good for your kids to read. I'm always looking for good summer fun stories for the kids, so this one might be it. This one is super sweet. This is called I Will Never Get a Star on Mrs. Benson's Blackboard. And this is about a really creative kid who can't sit still, who never gets on the board, because you get on the board for things like being neat, being quiet, answering questions correctly, and she just never does. Until one day that she meets an artist. An artist comes into school and talks to them about art and how to make art. And she's so excited that, and I'm trying to find the page, she gets upset because they get points for having clean desks, and her desk is not clean. So this artist comes and tells them about art and how to be an artist. And she becomes very inspired by that. And she keeps thinking about it and thinking about it. And of course, it distracts her, so she doesn't get the math question right, and she doesn't get a star. But at the end, she's making this enormous, they make thank you cards for the artist, and she's making this enormous card, and the teacher comes around to inspect their desks to make sure they're clean, and this is what her desk looks like, and she's panicking, and the teacher starts cracking up, and because she's covered in paint, and everyone starts laughing, and she said, look, you are an artist. It's a little cheesy, I'll give you that. And the art I like the art. I think it's fun. And it's super, you know, simple. So she, you know, she cleans everything up. And I think the best part here is at the end, she finally gets a star, but she doesn't make just a regular star. She makes a special star, which I just think is wonderful. You know, it's a sweet story. There are a lot of stories with this message, though, so you may not need it. But if you do, or if you have a kid who might enjoy this one, it might be a good one for you. All right, now this one is a little different. Interstellar Cinderella. It's a little odd, but I like retellings of these kind of stories, and this one is something I never would have dreamed of. This is a story about an outer space mechanic Cinderella. And there's just something about that tickles me. So she's an outer space mechanic Cinderella, and she fixes everything, and she has evil stepsisters, of course. And one day, she goes and she helps the prince, but she leaves her, I think it's her socket wrench, behind. And so her socket wrench. And so he's very grateful to her that he helps her. I also like that he's not white, which is kind of nice. There's some diversity here. So she leaves her socket wrench behind, and he's like, I wanted to thank you, but he couldn't find her. So now he sets off to search the galaxy to find the girl who helped fix his spaceship. And so he has a socket wrench instead of a shoe, and he goes around and he says, the test is you have to build a spaceship. And so, of course, the stepsisters have no idea. They're like, what? We can't do that. And they've locked the Cinderella up, of course. And she gets out with the help of a robot mouse. It's all very, you know, it's silly. So there's a robot mouse who's helping her get out. And, of course, she fixes her jetpack and makes a fast getaway. And then she's like, wait, that wrench is mine. And there you go. And she says, be my bride. And she thought that over carefully. And her family watched in panic. I'm far too young for marriage, but I'll be your chief mechanic. I like this. I think it's cute. And, you know, dreams come true at the end. And there's really fun end papers. So, you know, it's not perfect, but as far as retellings of Cinderella go, this is pretty good. I like the story. It's sweet. It could make a really good story time story. And, you know, as far as heroes go, Interstellar Mechanic, I think that's pretty good. All right. This one, Troto and the Trucks. So this is about a truck that's a little smaller than everybody else and feels left out. There's a little bullying. It's the typical story of kind of the, you know, the underdog. There's not a lot special with the story. However, it's about trucks. Who doesn't love trucks? And so there's, you know, these trucks who are picking on him, and because he's small and he's trying to, you know, hang out with them, and one of them gets a flat tire, and they're like, go away, little truck. And, but he, of course, can go places that they can't. So he ends up, look, there's a truck that's stuck, and he goes in between the wheels to escape. I think the kids are really going to like the art, and the idea that it's trucks, you know, the kids really like cars. So there you go. They're like, what? You won. Like I said, silly story, but it's about trucks. If you have truck lovers in your libraries, you might need this one. If you don't, you might not. But I thought it was kind of cute. I'm always a big fan of truck books. All right. Ben Draws Trouble. I like the art with this one. This is one of the series of Ben books. I think it's Ben Rides On. And I like this story. This is a story about a kid who likes to draw. Now, I like the art. I like the art a lot. So he likes to draw, and unfortunately, he gets distracted a lot. And he draws people, especially, and sharks. But see, they're not that flattering, which is a problem, because one day he loses his sketchbook, and the kids find it. And look at this face. He's like, no, my sketchbook! It kind of reminds me of Shel Silverstein. So anyway, he looks for his sketchbook everywhere, and of course, where do you think it is? It's at school with all the kids who have been cartoonized in his sketchbook, and they are appalled. And then here comes the teacher, who also stars in his sketchbook, and he's like, oh, look at his face. And of course, Ben thinks he is in deep doo-doo. He thinks he's going to get in so much trouble. And so this part is great. This is, this story is an actual climax. So right here, you're kind of worried about him because he's being marched to the principal's office. And oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But he just keeps walking. He walks past the principal's office, and instead, he signs him up to help with the school play set design. And at the end, you see him drawing these enormous creatures for the set design. I like the story a lot. I think it has a really satisfactory conclusion. He doesn't get in trouble. He's got this awesome teacher. And, he's a kid who doesn't fit in. And instead of, making it perfect, the teacher actually finds somewhere to funnel his energy, which I think is kind of cute. Plus, I like the art. Let's see, I've got, this one here is a little bit of nonfiction. Water is Water. I like this story. It's poetic, but it's also science, which is just a great combination. So this story is about water. It's drip, sip, pour me a cup. Water is water. Unless it heats up. Whirl, swirl, watch it curl by. Steam is steam, unless... So it goes on. So you have water and steam and clouds and fog and rain and puddles and ice and then snowflakes. And then when spring comes back, it melts and then it turns into mud. And then mud, then there are roots. And then apples grow from the roots. I love this circle story. I think it's really great for the kids. And then they make apple cider. So it's a great little cycle story about water. It's got tons of information in the back. If you're a school librarian, this could be a really wonderful lesson. And for summer reading in the public library, this could be great for an activity. So there's lots of different, this whole it's a timeline of water. It kind of, it shortens or summarizes the story. And then there's all these cool facts, like a baby is about 78% water. Who knew? A turtle is about 70% water. An oak tree is about 75% water. You are about 65% water. There's a ton of water references here and a lot of information. So it could be used as a really simple picture book for story time, or it could be used as part of a lesson or an activity. And I think it's really well done. Plus, I love the art. It's beautiful. All right, now this one is a little bit different. This one reads almost like an easy reader. You could definitely hand this to your first graders, and they would get a big kick out of it. However, it's in a larger format, as you can see, and it could be wonderful for story time too. And it's about the skunk. It's a very simple story, and it's about this guy who opens up his front door one day, and there's a skunk sitting there, and he's like, "Go away." And he doesn't. Instead, he follows him everywhere. And the skunk just follows him everywhere. Extremely simple art. See, it's only black, white, and red. And so he tries to lose him. So he takes all these crazy turns. He tries to give him food and his pocket watch. He's like, "Take it." And the skunk says no. So finally he says, "Forget it." So he gets into a taxi. What happens? The skunk gets into the taxi behind him. You gotta see the skunk in a taxi. It's hilarious. Skunk in a taxi, naturally. And then he goes to the opera, and he thinks that he's lost him in the opera. But alas, there he is. So you can see there's a lot of words on these pages. You can see kind of why it almost looks like an easy reader. It doesn't have a lot of big words like some picture books do. It's pretty simple. However, like I said, it could be used either way. So they go on a carnival, there they are on the Ferris wheel, they keep going, and then finally he's lost him, and he's so excited that he throws himself a party. But he can't enjoy his party. You know why? Because he's thinking about the skunk. Where's the skunk? So he retraces all his steps to find the skunk again, and he finds him. And then he decides he's going to follow the skunk around and keep an eye on him. So it's a really cute story. I think the kids will love it. It's simple. It looks old-fashioned, but it's new. Yeah, and it's got that old-fashioned kind of feel to it. This was the author who wrote Extra Yarn, so you might recognize that one as well. I think this is a really, really good one for your libraries. This is another one that I really loved. It's called One Family. This is a counting book, but it's also just a really nice kind of social commentary book about families. So it takes each 2-page spread has one number. So here's the first one. 1. Here we go. 1 is 1. 1 lamp, 1 clock, 1 book to share. I love the little lady with her fluffy hair. And then 1 is 2. 1 pair of shoes, 1 team of horses, 1 family. You can see, my spatial skills are failing me. Here you go. See, there's a parent and a kid. And it keeps going, and so the next one is 3. And the play on language is really fun. So it's 1 house of bears, 1 bowl of pears, 1 family. 1 ring of keys, 1 pile of pups, 1 family. 5, 1 bunch of bananas, 1 hand of cards, 1 family. So each family is different. 1 is 6. See that? 1 line of laundry, 1 butterfly's legs, 1 family. I just think it's really sweet, and the art is very complete. And so the families are all different, which I love. And then 8, 1 box of crayons, 1 row of ducks, 1 family. 9, 1 flight of stairs, 1 collection of rocks. 10, 1 batch of cookies, 1 shelf of books, 1 family. Look at that. I just think this is a wonderful book. It's an important book. Ooh, the light went out. So then in the end, it's 1 is on and everyone. There you go. So it's 1 earth, 1 world, 1 family. So I think this could be a great counting book, but it's also just a really great storybook, and I think a good book about families and what it means to be a family. And I think you can get a lot from the pictures. I think this could be a great storytime book. All right, I think the light has adjusted. Got mood lighting here. All right, so the next story is a little bit different. This is called Ask Me, and this book is one of those you read to me, I read to you kind of books, which is different. I love the art in this. It's I think it's colored pencils, which is fun. You don't see a lot of that these days. You see that? And so if you read the story, it's subtle, but the blue lines are one person and the black lines are the other. So it's ask me what I like. What do you like? I like dogs. I like cats. I like turtles. So you keep going, and they have an adventure throughout the day, and so it's like, ask me what else I like. What else do you like? I like horses. No, I like riding horses. You rode a horse on the merry-go-round, remember? You remember. I remember. So this is a story you could do. You could read with 2 adults playing each part if you wanted to, or you could have a kid read part of it in a lap sit situation. And then at the end, it's, she says, I like next Thursday. All right, here we go. Why do you like next Thursday? Because it's my birthday. Of course she does. Let it focus. I move around too much for the camera. There you go. Why do you like next Thursday? Because next Thursday is what? What? It's her birthday. And so, how could you ever forget? I could never forget your birthday. And so at the end, it's, now ask me if I'm sleepy. I just think this is a cute format for a story. It might not be ideal for your story time, but it is cute. And it's a dad and daughter, which isn't something that is seen too much in these kinds of stories, especially like the goodnight stories. It's very sweet. You know, not a lot happens, but it is very cute. and model some good, turn taking. All right, next, Elvis. This book is a nonfiction book, and you may not have a lot of call for Elvis in your library. I know it's not something that kids maybe are asking for, but this is a great story. It's written in verse, and it could be read to older kids. So if you look, there's a little paragraph or a little, poem for each year that they've pulled out. And so it's written in verse, and it talks about his upbringing, singing hymns, and then being introduced to, quote, black music. And the emphasis here is a lot about kind of the racial divide, and how when he went to go do recording, he sang everything, and they didn't like the fact that he sang black music. His friends make fun of him. He lived in Tennessee. They didn't like that. But when he went to the recording studio, he sang the gospel stuff that he was known for, and suddenly they loved him. They signed him and made his first performance. There you go. So, the art is pretty good. It's a different kind of Elvis story because it ends with him being famous. The last picture, actually, he's not that glitzy at all compared to other Elvis-type stories. And then at the end, there is a timeline and some information. So like I said, you might not have a lot of call for a book like this, but if you have kids who might be interested in music or history, it might be a good choice. All right, now this book has got tons of really good reviews. I have mixed feelings about it, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. It's called I Am a Donkey. Now, I'm kind of a grammar freak, and I think that's why this book bothers me a little bit. So it's kind of like who's on first. It's like, I'm a yam. You said I'm a donkey. I am a yam. I am a yam. I don't know. I find that kind of silly. And he's all confused. I am a donkey. No, don't say yam. It's am. It's like, I don't know. And the art is equally ridiculous. But, if you have silly kids, they might like this. If you like this kind of thing. And then, I've never said I am in my entire life. Hee-haw, you just did. I don't know. It's kind of like, 8-year-old boy humor, only minus the bathroom. And then the other vegetables come over, and they're talking about I am, you are, and the poor yam is just totally losing it. Are you trying to tell me that I am the only donkey here? That you and all the other critters is donkeys too? I need to get my eyes checked. You're not. You're vegetables. And then at the end, the donkey says, "You lunch." So his grammar never gets any better. And then the moral, which I kind of take offense to, if you is going to be eaten, good grammar don't matter. Really? Okay, it's funny. I have a soft spot when it comes to grammar. I don't like picking on the grammar. So if you are a little kinder than I am, go for it. It's funny in a silly boy kind of way. There you go. All right, moving on to the really, really good stuff. Kate Messner has a new storybook out, and it's phenomenal. How to Read a Story. This is a gorgeous storybook, and it's basically how to read a story. So it comes in steps. So step 1, it can have princesses or castles, if you like that kind of thing. And there's all sorts of pictures. Find a story. And then step 2 is find a reading buddy. And it's make sure your reading buddy is nice and snuggly. There's a dog. And then find a cozy reading spot. Maybe not outside if it's freezing. But if it's hot, could be fun. This part is cute. Inside is good. Find a cozy chair. But don't get stuck. And then step 4 is look at the book's cover. try to figure out what it's about, and then open the book, once upon a time. And then step 6, when the characters talk, whatever's being said, say it in a voice to match who's talking. This would be a great storytime book, because you could have so much fun with this. I will save the kingdom. I'm the most powerful in all the land. I'm hungry for lunch. Soon the castle will be mine. Eat. I think you could, I would have a ton of fun with this with story time. So you gotta hold the book so your buddy can see the pictures. If there are words or you don't know, try sounding them out. If you need a break, talk to your reading buddy. Try to predict. I mean, it gets into the whole, teacher idea of reading, and predicting and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But it's hidden in this story. And then you got to turn the page to see what actually happens and find the end. They all lived happily ever after. And then when the book is over, say the end! And you have a big celebration moment. And then, if it's a really good story, go back and start it all over again. This is a wonderful book. You got to read it. You got to get it. You just have to. All right. Next one. Rude Cakes. Rude Cakes is hilarious. This book, I just have to show you, is basically about a bunch of cakes that get themselves into trouble. Rude Cakes never say please. It's terrible. All right, let me get the focus. Focus. Autofocus is not working today. Huh? Okay, well, trust me. Rude Cakes never say please. There you go. Gimme. And then they never say thank you. And sometimes they take things that don't belong to them. Look at that little cake topper. Belongs to somebody else. And then they never listen, especially when parents are boring. They never wait their turn. They never share. They're never sorry. They're never, ever wrong. They also think baths are dumb. I'm a cake. How dirty can I be? It's hilarious because it's a cake. Oddly enough, giant cyclopses love to wear jaunty little hats. You didn't know where that was going, did you? There you go. It's a cake hat. So there you go. The cake becomes a cake hat. And he doesn't want to be a hat, of course. And so he's like, I'm not a hat, I'm not a hat. And but giant cyclopses are very kind, and they wait their turn in line, and they're very kind to each other. They say please and thank you. So finally the cake says, please! Because he wants to get off the cyclops' head. And they always listen. The cyclopses always listen. And he's like, I'm not a hat. I'm a tired cake, and I would like to go to bed now. And so the cyclops apologizes and puts him back. Because cyclopses are nice, unlike rude cakes. But of course, cake's never too rude to change. So this is a really sweet story about manners, but it's also a really funny twist in the middle. The kids will never predict that all of a sudden there's a cyclops. So I think the kids would really like it. I think it would be an awesome read aloud and really funny. And there's a lot to see in each spread, so I think you could spend some quality time with that. All right, last but not least, Squid Kid. I think this story is hysterical. It's Squid Kid the Magician. The art is big and bold, and I just think it would be hysterical for story time. I actually read this to some of my coworkers. See, he's a magician, and he's purple. And so his magic words are smelly yellow jellyfish. So he waves, and he winks, and he vanishes in ink. Goodbye. And then he reappears. But then he has this sister who's annoying and always trying to ruin his tricks. And I love how she has one tooth. It's hilarious. So, see, nothing in my hands. All 8 of my hands, empty. So you can see the pictures are just amazing. And so then, in the end, he has, he turns all of his friends smelly yellow jellyfish, and he makes them disappear. And his sister's like, they camouflage, they're not actually disappearing, you're lying to people. And he's trying to make her go away, but she won't go away. And so then he tries to make a cuttlefish, and it's just really funny. And so then he puts on a shark mask, and he scares her. It's extremely silly, but I think it's hilarious, and I would love to do this for story time. The brother-sister thing, and how, she doesn't want to be fooled, but he's going to fool her. And his magic words are hilarious, smelly yellow jellyfish, and at the very end, he goes away, of course. It could be a great read aloud. I think it's just a fun book. I'm a big fan of fun books, so this could be a really good one. All right. That's all I have for picture books right now. Pause right now while I turn the lights back on. Hold on 1 second. The lights go off if no one moves out there, and since Aiden's gone for the day, no one was moving. All right, moving on. I've got a bunch of middle grade books. The first one, Kimberly Willis Holt, she wrote When Zachary Beaver Came to Town, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And this story looks equally sweet. It's short. I think it's recommended for grades 4 to 7. And it takes place in 1948 in Louisiana. And it's about a girl who's been given a pen pal assignment, and she decides to choose Hank Williams, who's a country singer. And he's just become popular in 1948. And so she tells him about her life through letters. So it's all letters. It's all one-sided. But she tells her story about her family and the adventures that they go on. And she just knows that they're going to be kindred spirits and best friends. So she just keeps writing. It looks sweet. It doesn't look like it has a ton of adventure in it, but I think it could be a really sweet, quiet story for kids who are looking for that kind of thing. The exact opposite of that, Return to Augie Hobble. This is actually like a label. If lost, return to. So this is about a boy named Augie, and he lives in Fairy Tale Place, which is a falling apart amusement park in New Mexico. And so you can kind of just imagine all the characters that are in this book. And then he's failed his creative arts class, so now he has to do a summer project. And that's what this book is about. And it's full of crazy stuff like this and little comic books. Look at that. So it's not as long as it looks. And it's there's a ton of adventures and mysteries. And of course, the whole thing is set in this decrepit amusement park, so I can only imagine the characters. And there are lots of school bullies and maybe some paranormal events. And this story just looks hilarious. There's lots of art in there. It's recommended for, I think, grades 4 and up. It looks like a great story and a little adventure. A lot of fairy tale goodness in this one. All right, next. This book has gotten so much publicity, it's ridiculous. Diary of a Mad Brownie. This book, the galley, the pre-pub, showed up in my office in a box with a brownie in it. And this is for the pre-publication, and a letter and all this goofy stuff, stickers and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, what is this? But lo and behold, it got pretty good reviews. It is Bruce Coville, who is a well-known author. So you never know. Anyway, a brownie is an ancient creature from an enchanted realm that secretly neatens and spruces up human houses. So that's who he is. He is a brownie. And his name is Angus. And he comes to meet this kid named Alex, who is an ordinary, extremely messy child. And they are bound together with a curse, and together they have to solve this curse. This story is full of diary entries and scrapbook pages, things like that. For all the reviews said it's hilarious. So I think it could be a good little adventure story. Plus, he's called a Brownie, which I think is hilarious. And he's not so sure that he wants to hang around. Oh, look, compares his head to a cookie. He's not so sure he wants to be attached to this human who's extremely messy, especially when he's a neat freak. So this looks like a pretty hilarious story. I think it's the beginning of a new series. And so I think if you have kids who like this kind of fantasy adventure story, this could be a good one to try out, see what it's like. All right, this book has also gotten quite a bit of hype. Megan Fraser Blakemore wrote The Spycatchers of Maple Hill, which was on our nomination list for DCF last year. And this story looks really interesting, and a lot of it takes place in the library. So this is the typical friendship story where the two best friends are kind of growing apart. So you have Ruth and you have Charlotte. And so I can't remember which is which, but one of them has two dads and one of them has two moms. So they kind of were thrown together as young kids and they remained friends. But now they're starting to drift apart. And so Ruth has decided she's better off in the library. She doesn't need friends. So she goes to the libraries and she's roaming through the stacks and she finds an old book that has note in it with riddles. So this is a mystery. The problem is that she can't solve the riddle without help. And so she makes friends. And there's I think there's a little baby romance in here as well. As she tries to make friends and figure out the answer to this riddle. So it looks like a good, a friendship story, kind of a baseline story, but also a neat little adventure mystery, and good library fun. All right, this one looks like a great summer book. It's called Fort, and it looks like a simple book about some kids who are building forts for the summer. The parents don't want them online, so they've taken away all their devices, no TV, no iPhones. So they are doing all of the good stuff, camping, fishing, building forts, playing in the woods, and these two friends are having the time of their life. Except there, of course, are bullies. And the bullies are trying to destroy their fort. So they build, contraptions and booby traps to try to thwart their enemies. It does not look like, the most, the craziest climax ever, but it looks like a really fun summer read, quiet, kind of good boy adventure, outside adventure. So I think this could be a good read. I think it looks good. All right, moving on to some older stuff. This book, Ink and Ashes, as you can see, it's already gotten a couple of labels. It was a Junior Library Guild selection. And this story is about a girl named Claire, and her father has died about 10 years before, and on the anniversary of his death, she's digging around her parent and her stepfather's stuff, and she finds a letter between her father and her stepfather, only she didn't know that they knew each other, which is mysterious. And she comes to find out that her father was part of this Japanese crime syndicate. And all of a sudden, this mysterious black van starts following her around, and all this weird stuff starts happening. And so there's a lot of adventure and intrigue. This story is recommended for 7 and up, but it looks like a really good adventure story. Obviously, some people have lauded it already. It looks like a great adventure story and a story about, getting to know your family. It takes place in Utah, too, which I think is interesting. What book takes place in Utah? I think that's fun. So this could be a good one for your libraries. All right, the next one. How about some fantasy? Becoming Jinn. This looks really interesting. This looks like an allegory of adolescence. This is a story of a girl. Her name is Azra. She's just turned 16, and her body started to change, and she's just gotten a new job. She's becoming, an adolescent, but she's also becoming a djinn. which means that she needs to learn about her ancestry and about the servitude that comes along with it. And so she is kind of by day acting as this normal teenager, and she's working at the beach and, flirting with boys and whatever. But then on her off time, she's trying to figure out where she fits into this gin community and how the heck she's going to figure how she's going to be a servant to somebody and whether she wants to be and how she fits in there, and maybe she doesn't. So I think this could be a really interesting coming of age story for your young fantasy readers. It's kind of that intertwined fantasy, growing up type story. All right, Sophie Kinsella. I don't know about you, but I love the Shopaholic books. They are good beach read, mindless brain candy. She wrote the Shopaholic books are adult books, and this is her first YA novel. It does not look heavy at all, what you would expect. It looks kind of fun and fluffy. However, it starts out with an interesting storyline. It's about a girl named Audrey who has an anxiety disorder, and she was in the hospital, and she's just been released, and her family's very supportive. And the problem is that she's having trouble connecting with people, and so she meets this boy named Linus and starts getting along with him and starts talking to him, and it starts to make her feel better. And everything I've read, comic flirtation, goodness, coming of age, but with this kind of anxiety shadow. And from what I've read in the reviews, it's handled very well. So this looks like a good one. Your teens are going to ask for it because Sophie Kinsella's a big name, and it got quite a bit of press, and they handed out a lot of galleys. So keep it on your radar. Next, this is for your older teens. This is definitely, the main character is 19, and it's recommended for grades 9 and up. It's a little more mature. Sera Mas, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She wrote the Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, Assassin's Blade stories. And so if you like kids who like fantasy adventure stories, this could be a good one. So this is about a girl. She's 19. I can't pronounce her name, but she kills a wolf in the woods. And unfortunately, the Fae in the woods take offense to that. And so they drag her away to a castle, and they lock her up. And they tell her they have to keep her in exchange for the wolf that she killed. And there she gets a peek into their land. And there's this guy named Tamlin who's in charge of the fairyland, and she starts to fall for him, or whether she falls in lust with him. So it sounds like a good bit of romance, a lot of adventure, and a lot of fairy goodness. So if you have kids who really like that kind of stuff, this could be a really good one. But like I said, a little more on the mature side. All right, very last. You ready? Nonfiction. The Boys Who Challenged Hitler. There is a ton of World War II fiction coming out right now. This is nonfiction. This is a story of the teens in Denmark who rose up in a resistance movement against Nazi Germany. And the story is about, I can't remember, Nude Peterson. And the author has a nice picture of them together. And he did a ton of research on this man, and he was one of the teens who led the uprising in Denmark against the German invasion. This group of kids were honored by Churchill, and this whole story, it's kind of like there's like interviews and pictures and stories, so it's almost narrative nonfiction. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know if it's as engaging as like a Steve Sheinkin book, but it looks really good. It's an interesting time period, lots of great pictures, lots of information, and of course it's about a bunch of teenagers who really did make a difference in the world, so it looks really wonderful. There's a ton of information in here and some good references. And if you are a school librarian, this could be a good addition to your collection. It's not that long, which is good, to because it's got a nice index, which I love, and nice credits and picture credits. So this one could be good if you have kids who are interested in this time period, kids who need nonfiction to read, or if you're a school librarian or a public librarian who just needs some more history on your shelves. There you go. I'm done. Whew. Okay. So thank you for joining me. Don't forget to go to the Department of Libraries website. It's libraries.vermont.gov. If you click on Children and Teen and click on Resources and then click on Collection Development, I know it's tough. And then you can find an archive of all my videos. You can also find videos of what Sharon's reading, so all of the novels that I have read and will give you my critical interpretation of. I'm happy to also talk to you about anything. There you go. Email, phone. Shout out if you have any questions, comments, books that you think I should read. I'm happy to take recommendations. I am in charge of both the DCF and the GMBA book awards, so I'm trying to keep on top of everything. So I'm happy to hear what you have to say, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. I hope you have a great month, and I'll see you again